back to another episode of the Intentional Iron Podcast. This is actually going to be the first episode of the, how do you say your Instagram handle? Is it Majin?
Like Majin Buu from Dragon Ball.
Okay. Majin times Maddog series. So this is going to be kind of going into the insights and like the thinkings of two young and up and coming bodybuilders, coaches within the space that aren't like brain rotted from TikTok and Instagram, that have some their own experiences or whatever, and just going into more of like who we are as people. This first episode is going to be more of like our background and our upbringing, because like for my podcast, for example, I usually try to highlight the guest. I don't really like talking about myself and whatever, but this one's gonna be more of like, if y'all have watched like Dusty and Ron Partlow, it's gonna be kind of like kind of like that, going into the more of the personal side of themselves and stuff like that. So Seth's your actual name for those of you who are following or watching or whatever. Seth, go into a little bit of your upbringing, your childhood, any sports you played, and just like who you are.
Yeah, dude. I always feel like I'm pretty shitty at telling stories about myself because there's obviously like so much I could go into. I definitely have had like a rocky, complicated, and interesting upbringing. But growing up, it was around the age of 4 where like my entire like character arc started to develop. Around the age of 4, I started ballooning up in weight, and then I was a very large kid. I was morbidly obese from the age of 4 to 13. 13 was when my whole like weight loss journey started. And if anyone's watching this and they like have seen my Instagram or my social media stuff, they know me from that. But there was a lot of shit that went down when I was younger, and it kind of led to food as a source of comfort, very much like a trauma sort of thing. And I mean, dude, looking back, it's kind of a blurry, just because like I've gone so far since then. It's almost like that's just another person at this point.
Yeah.
But just the amount that I could put down in terms of food, and also the choices, because I mean, at the time, I grew up very like, I would say middle class, or maybe even like lower middle class. Money was a struggle at many times during my childhood. And often what would be available in terms of food would be things like TV dinners, frozen pizzas. Frozen pizzas were my shit, like DiGiorno, bro. Man.
Dude, we
things
can
like that.
We can go into that later. Yeah. Yeah.
Like just for like reference, like I remember specifically waking up before going to school in 4th grade, and like I would eat an entire box, like Costco sized box of the El Monterey taquitos, the frozen taquitos. And to be doing that at a young age, it's pretty insane to think about in hindsight, but that's basically what led to me becoming so large. At my biggest, I was about 320 pounds at 5'7". I'm 5'7", 5'8" now. I haven't checked in a while. I haven't been to the doctor in a minute.
The GH might push you to 5'8".
Shit, I hope so, bro. But I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see that. But dude, there's so much I can unpack here.
It's good. Looking back on childhood now, like I know it sounds kind of stupid coming from someone that's 21, but being like, I feel the same way. It's like, it's all a blur. Like I really don't remember a lot. Like there are a few like key moments I remember from like sports, or like with me, dude, it's funny with me. There's a lot of like really clear moments that I remember from my childhood that like have no significance on why I remember it so vividly. But like whenever I like someone asks me like, talk about your upbringing, it's like I played basketball, played football, I was around my grandpa a lot, I got fat, and I ate a lot of food. And it's like everything's such like a blur. And obviously when you're young, like our frontal lobe is going to be developing until we're 25. So like obviously you're not going to remember every little thing, but it is funny looking back. And even like for myself, looking back on just like the past like 2 years since I graduated high school, it's like I don't remember anything. Like I don't remember
life moves very fast.
It's crazy, yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know.
If I'm going to keep it kind of related to like fitness and bodybuilding, because that's kind of what this like the channel centered around. That's what everything I do is kind of centered around at this point. I grew up morbidly obese. I was a very big kid. I remember being chronically sick. I had a lot of GI issues growing up. I don't remember what in specific, but I do remember there's one time I was told I was quite literally full of shit. Like I essentially had like a buildup of poop in my colon that was stuck.
Yeah.
I remember having to chug like this gallon bottle of what was like it was almost like Metamucil. You know, Metamucil like thickens up. It was like that. and it was some sort of laxative, but I was always sick. I was always missing school. And I think there was a bit of there was like a double whammy going on, or like a self-fulfilling thing where I was getting bullied heavily because of my weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always a little bit of an odd one out just with my interests and being a bigger kid, feeling like I was a bit outcasted. I kind of kept to my own with a few friends, you know, but because I was getting bullied heavily at school, I would try to avoid school as much as I could. I missed so many days that it was a concern many times that we'd be brought to court by the school district, but I would fake being sick. And then also I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, I was almost like placeboing myself into being sick. And I'm sure, you know, with my state of health, absolutely. I was chronically like just in kind of a state of inflammation and just like not the best, not the healthiest body, right? It was around the age of 13, sometime like midway through 7th grade. I was into basketball at that time. I never played sports much growing up, but basketball was my shit. I was a big Golden State Warriors fan. I would buy the Curry 2.5s. I remember that was like a big deal for me. And I wore size 13 at the time because of my big fat ass feet. But that was like my first real exposure to like physical activity that I actually engaged with and kept up with.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like I was moving quite a lot because of it. Like basketball is a very like intense activity. And especially when you're having fun with it, like having something that you actually enjoy doing, it makes it really easy to just like rack up the amount of time spent. Yeah. But obviously I was like, I wasn't very fast. I had a good shot, but that was about it.
Yeah.
So eventually basketball kind of like fizzled out for me. And I would get into a lot of like scuffles at school because I had felt outcasted for a minute. And I had a lot of like built up almost like resentment, I would say, towards the world and kind of just like the state I was in, how I was getting treated. I was kind of a shitty kid. Like I would do a lot of bad things in school, outside of school. I got involved with drugs very early on. And there was some poor influence from outside the family, but there was like a foster situation going on. It was complicated, but essentially I had bad influences and I kind of partook in that stuff. So at school, some of the older kids, this is in middle school, by the way, there was at one point I kind of got confronted and it was a big thing where like the whole, it felt like the whole school gathered around, circled around me and this one kid, and we were about to fight. And this was kind of like the first experience I had where I really did try and stick up for myself. I remember like the sense of like anxiety and embarrassment I had. Like I was like kind of shaking in place, but I was also like trying not to back down for once. Anyways, this older kid who was like kind of affiliated with some other kids who were not so good of influences, I was going to get jumped. And it was this thing where we were going to meet up. It was going to happen. Never fell through. A few different times, never fell through, but I would show up. And I was like, to me, I was like, fuck it, you know, like fuck the world. I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
So might as well, you know, if I get my ass beat, I get my ass beat. But also at the same time, it kind of inspired a little bit of like movement in me. You know, I was very angry at myself. Yeah, it inspired a little bit of the dog. I was angry at myself. I was angry at the world. I was angry at how I was being treated because I didn't feel at that time like I was fully responsible for my weight and just how like the state of health I was in. Because I didn't really have a good guidance when it came to that. I really didn't. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to get my ass beat potentially, or I could start training a little bit, you know, like preparing for this fight. And it all kind of started with that. I had a pair of boxing gloves I got from a thrift store, and I would practice with a water heater in my garage as a punching bag. As a fat kid, I was pretty damn flexible too. So like I could do some like high kicks and stuff. And that was my thing. I was planning, like it was visualized in my head. I was going to like head kick this kid who was going to fight me.
Bro, I love that.
And that like, there was just this big sense of like a fire inside of me all of a sudden. And that was really the turning point. So from there, the fight never happened. We kind of made amends. And then it was through that, I got interested in kickboxing, Muay Thai. There was a local gym. I started going to it. At first, it was very daunting because I'm way out of my element. I have to like really push myself to try and keep up with everyone else, but they would slow down. It was a really good environment. Everyone was very encouraging. And that to me was like my first experience of like people actually are like trying to help me out here, you know? They saw like a little bit of potential in me, and they're like, they're waiting for me. They're slowing down, make sure that I can also get my reps in. And so I fell in love with something that was physical for the first time ever. And man, Muay Thai, just the training for it, especially the place I was going to, Stray Dogs Club in Monroe, Washington. Monroe is a small town, amazing people. And that training alone got me into pretty damn good shape. I
I can
lost about
imagine.
70, 80 pounds within just a few months.
Damn.
And simultaneously, like I was also starting to pay a little bit more attention to what I was eating. Very basic to start. This was back before TikTok was around. So like I did have internet access from a young age, both a good and a bad thing.
Mhm.
Like a lot of our generation had that, and it could be for
Yeah.
better or worse. But for me, it was better. So I was on bodybuilding.com forums very early, starting out. Elite FTS was a big one. T Nation, I'm sure everybody remembers T
Yeah.
Nation. But I kind of got into the modality of like, okay, meat, rice, veggies, and oatmeal and protein powder. And dude, I was spamming oatmeal and protein powder almost 3 meals a day, every day. I began tracking my
Jesus.
food. And like it just picked up so quick. So within a year of cooking my own food, learning to cook for myself, and then doing the kickboxing, also simultaneously, I started going to the local YMCA. I got into starting strength, which was, I'm happy that was my introduction to weight training because it was very, just compared to what it is nowadays in terms of like the meta for lifting.
Yeah.
I'm happy that's where I got into it.
Yeah, for sure.
All those things combined, I mean, dude, it was just like a double, triple, quadruple whammy. And so I lost about 160 pounds within a year and I built a good amount of muscle. Cardiovascularly, I was in shape to where like, I remember the feeling of doing the pacer test again after losing weight, like coming back next year in 8th grade and doing it and beating some of the smaller kids compared to, like the last time, I would get laughed at, people would stand on the sidelines and kind of like wait for me to finish and I'd gas out.
Yeah.
That was like, it was such a motivating and like just captivating sensation to me. Like I fell in love with it. So
Yeah.
not to make that super long and drawn out, but like that's where like the passion for all of this really started.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of weight in a short amount of time and then I fell in love with the gym.
Yeah. That's like that pipeline like that is so, it's like, it's very similar. Everyone's journey to bodybuilding all kind of could fit the same framework, be it you come from skinny or to fat or from obese or whatever. It all kind of follows the same like similar path. And it's so cool hearing everybody's different, like how it unfolded, be it like, they grew up fat and like the environment was bad, or they grew up and got bullied, or be it something even more traumatic or whatever. It's all kind of like the same thing. There's not really too many people I've talked to or examples I can think of that's like super like off the cuff, or like there are other people that like have been in, like there was one guy I used to follow, I can't remember his name, but he was like in bodybuilding, like his parents were like pro bodybuilders and he was in it from like the get-go. Like you're like an anomaly if that's how you get into it. But then you have the basic story of like, I was fat, I got bullied, and then I found the gym. And so I'm gonna go into like a little bit of like my upbringing, because I've never really done that. I've done that in my long form content, but never in like a podcast format. So I'll go in like a little bit of what kind of got me into bodybuilding and stuff like that. What got me into bodybuilding stuff, like a young age, I was always in sports and stuff like that. I was in basketball, I was in football, but I've grown up in like a southern Arkansan city. I was always in sports and everything. And like I grew up in like southern Arkansas. So like food is like a comfort thing here. And man, looking back on my childhood, it's kind of like the thing we had on earlier. It's like everything's kind of a blur. Nothing too like traumatic, like you went through, happened to me. It's just like I found comfort in food because that's the only thing that we really have here to like gather upon and do. Like in Mina, in my city, there's nothing to do but like drink, hunt, work at this one company, go to the mountain, or that's really it. So like you gather around food, and that's kind of where I gained like my comfort or whatever. But where I gained all my weight at was, and I mean, some people have like dismissed my own transformation because they're like, well, you just got fat because you were young, so it doesn't really count. And I'm like, well, that's not really true, but okay. But when I got fat was like around, so I was also into basketball like you were, and I got fat around this time that I started actually playing AAU basketball for a travel ball team that was like really good. Because like what happened was like I played like a little league game and I scored like 30 points or some shit, like it was crazy. And then like this AAU team was like, hey, come play with us. And I was the only white kid on the team. It's hilarious. I can put up a picture. It's like a bunch of like, not trying to be racist, but it's like a bunch of black kids and there's my fat ass on the end. It's like hilarious. But I like a shot or whatever, and I wasn't that fast or whatever. But that's when I gained all my weight. And I was also in football, and I'm sure you've seen like the football pictures of me when I was like the fat quarterback. I was like 5'7" and like 200 pounds, but I was like trying to play quarterback. So I played sports growing up and everything. My dad was into bodybuilding, but it was crazy looking back on it now, because like when I was in sports, I liked playing the sport. Like I liked playing football, I liked playing basketball, but like the things that went into it, like the practices in the gym, like I would go into the gym and like shake because I was like embarrassed. I was scared. Like I have memories with my dad, who was, like I said, into bodybuilding, where like he would have me pushing the sled in the middle of this tiny gym and everyone's just like watching me and I'm like dying. So that kind of, I'm glad that I didn't let like that frame how I viewed the gym forever. Cause a lot of people will go through something like that and then be like, well, I have trauma from this. So I just can't go in the gym. And it's like, you just gotta, yeah, move on. Like if for just kind of going off a tangent for a second, as using yourself as an example, if you would let like your childhood get in the way of what you wanted to do now, it's like you would never have progressed forward. And people get stuck in that mindset too much. But getting back to like my upbringing or whatever, my turning point was kind of like what lit that dog in me kind of. It's kind of similar to something like your situation. So I had always been like one of the faster kids growing up. And then I got bigger or whatever. I'd always finish like first in like the drills and all like the footwork stuff and whatever. And then there was one day where I think this was in like 7th or 8th grade. My mom actually had said to me, what'd she say? It was like, you know, Maddox, you used to like get first in all your footwork drills, and you're one of the fast kids. Like whatever happened to that, bro? That lit a fire in me, and I don't know, like I can't remember what I did that night, but I lived out like the middle of the woods, and I remember I had like a ladder, like a foot ladder, like drill that I would do drills on. Bro, I did drills for like hours that night. It was like 2 a.m. I started like running my driveway, and that's just where it started for me. I was like, I'm gonna lose all this weight. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it. And then through all of that is kind of where I started doing the weight loss stuff for football and whatever. And then like looking into that a little bit, I had lost my spot at quarterback because I was like fat, and they're like, maybe you should switch to defense. And like growing up through high school, I wanted to play. One of my big goals was like college football. Like I wanted to go play like small college ball, because that's really all I had going for me, because I didn't have like any other interests outside of sports. So I went like all in on that, lost all the weight, got in really good shape, and earned like a starting spot on the high school football team. That was cool. But then through all of that, I realized like we were never good at sports, and I really hated there being things that decided my outcome that weren't in my control. Like, I could be the best linebacker in the world because that's what I played. You could be the best linebacker in the world, but if your quarterback sucks, you're kind of cooked. You're kind of screwed. And then through all of that, like gaining that perspective led looking to find like joy out of the other things of football, which was like, outside of football, you have like, practice or whatever, but then you have the weight room. And that's what kind of led to everything. As I was like, I went through I had like a 4-year relationship. Honestly, looking back on that relationship, I kind of thank God for it, because like if I didn't have that to like anchor me down and like just isolate me from all the other idiots I was friends with, I don't know where I'd be now. So like that relationship may have like broken me in the moment, but it kept me like isolated from other things. So that was good. But what I had through all of high school was the gym and the training. And then when I graduated, I maybe have talked about this story on here before, but I had kind of counted on my dad to get me a job all through high school. Like he works for the railroad that goes all through America, like KCS or CPKCS is what it's called. And I was just counting on him to give me a job. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to college. I hate school, and I'm just going to count on him to give me a job. Cool. And then I got to my senior year, and I was like, low key, I don't want to do that. I don't know how to do anything with my hands. Like, I don't have any like blue collar skills. Yo, what is up, beautiful human who is watching the podcast? First of all, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch the podcast, listen to the podcast. It means more to me than you guys know. But I recently checked my YouTube analytics, and 89% of you guys that are watching are not subscribed. So if you could do me one little favor, take some time out of your day and please hit that subscribe button.
hit the like button, hit the bell, do all those cool things, and that will mean more to me than you guys know and will help me build this channel so I can bring on greater guests, keep giving you guys information and all that good stuff as well. Second thing is this channel is not sponsored, so I do not make money from these videos, but one way that you can support me is by using my affiliate codes. Right now I've got 3 affiliate codes. One is going to be with Nutrix Supplements. I've used all their products for about 2 or 3 years now. Their protein is very good. They have a vast variety of EAA flavors and all that kind of stuff as well. I have a code with Biomiss Labs. This is my little bottle of SLU for all your peptide needs. It'll be code Maddox over there, just like my name, Maddox. And then I have another sponsor now with Flavor Gang. Flavor Gang has some of the craziest flavors when it comes to like cream of rice flavors, when it comes to 0-calorie sauces. It is some of the craziest tasting things. It tastes like you are cheating on your diet all the time, which is crazy. So that'll be code Maddox over there, just like my name, Maddox. And if you guys can please use my codes over there to support me in my journey of whatever this is, that would mean more to me than you guys know. But with all that being said, let's get back to the podcast.
Skills or whatever. So I was like, I just spent 4 years like kind of dicking around, basically, like not really trying to find what interests me or trying to find something for a career. I kind of just like went to school and just didn't have any purpose, which I mean, I guess that's not really like uncommon. A lot of kids kind of do that anyways. But the one thing I did and was able to call upon was the gym and bodybuilding. So I was like, how can I make this? Like, how can I make money off of this? How can I make a career out of this? And that's kind of where everything started for me. Is like I lost weight for sports, ended up falling out of love with the sport itself. And what does that leave you? That leaves you with the training. And then you take the training, and then that's kind of the pipeline like every bodybuilder goes through. It's like they fall, or every what I think successful bodybuilder kind of follows through is they fall in love with the training and the doing of the thing, and then that just leads to bodybuilding. So that's kind of like a little bit of my backstory. That was a really shitty explanation of it, and way worse than yours, because yours was like very intricately put. But that's kind of my upbringing into like bodybuilding and the sport and everything.
No, don't draw comparisons there. It's always very strange trying to look back, because you always have the sense of why, like inside of you. Like we both have the, I guess, like the pushing force, but to actually dwell on it is like, it's not something I really enjoy doing, because there is a lot of like, there's strong emotion behind it, you know?
Yeah.
Almost everyone in bodybuilding, for the most part, I mean, they started out of kind of a negative driver, right?
Yeah.
For me, it was very, very much negative in the start. Like I really was not happy with myself. I was not happy with the world around me. It was very much a fuck everybody, fuck myself sort of thing. But over time, like when you develop that love for the gym, for the training, it can kind of flourish into something a little bit better, a little bit more fulfilling. That's, for the past few years, I mean, that's really been like a huge part of me figuring out what direction I actually want to take this. Like bodybuilding wasn't the original end goal or pursuit. Like after losing weight, kickboxing and everything, I got into powerlifting, and that was like my first real introduction into, I guess, training in a consistent manner and like trying to progress towards something. I mean, with that, like it was only something I really stuck with because I felt like I was somewhat decent at it. But then, of course, like there's so many fucking genetic freaks now. Oh my god, dude. So that was no longer the path for me. Not in like a discouraged way, but more so
reality.
And then also like, dude, I was very fixated on like how I looked, you know. I can draw that parallel to you, where I was also in a 4-year relationship at a pretty young age, all of high school. And I also appreciate how that kind of allowed me to not do too much like partaking in stupid shit, especially with like the influences around me. But likewise, I mean, it was very difficult getting out of that, like first like true heartbreak.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you and most people can relate to this, but following that, like ensued like some of the fastest and best progress of my life.
Dude,
because you really find like when like something like that is no longer there for you, the gym is there for you. The training is there for you. The routine is there for you. The pursuit is there for you.
Yeah, you've got like no restriction on like anything anymore. Like you don't have to, I'm not saying that this kind, sounds kind of selfish, but it's just kind of reality. It's like there's no considerations I have to make around my training, when I train, where I eat, what I eat, how I do anything. It's just me. And like I think this is something that I hit on a podcast I shot earlier today with Ty Jordan, was looking into bodybuilding. It can come off to the regular person on the street as like a very self-fulfilling, selfish endeavor. what I've come to realize is the more that I'm able to like pour into myself, the more that I want to pour into others, and the more that I want to pour into my job and my faith in God. And I don't think that a lot of people understand that from the outside looking in. And not that I think you have to get really deep into the sport and into the process of your own, or deep into your own process to really like unlock that level of understanding of bodybuilding. I think that when you go through that breakup and you're able to like really hone in on like yourself, especially at a young age, you know, I really wanted that, like, you know, high school sweetheart story, you know, whatever. But it's like whenever you're able to be young and really devote yourself to something, I think that the development of a man that could come from bodybuilding is like it is the most underrated aspect of bodybuilding. You know, like the muscles are cool, the shredded glutes are cool, the being huge is cool and all, but like the development as a person that comes from bodybuilding is sick. You know what I mean?
I feel like what you get out of it definitely does change a little bit over time as well. Like with my experience, like growing up and, you know, having a rough time in school, having a rough time socially, I didn't really like to be seen, right? Like I always felt like I had to hide myself a little bit. And also food was like, it was a huge source of comfort for that reason. Like I still to this day prefer to eat alone. Like I don't like eating in front of other people.
Yeah, me too.
And it's kind of funny, but now the deeper I get into this and the bigger I get as a person, the more from the outside people kind of see me as like, oh, he's like the bodybuilder guy.
Yeah.
I almost don't really like that because I don't want to be seen as really being any different. But at the same time, I love the actual thing so much that it's like, that's kind of just like a byproduct of it. And you do have to accept it. Like, dude, especially when you get into like real bodybuilding territory, if you're walking around like 200 plus pounds lean, like you do not, like you stand out like a sore thumb, like no matter what, you can't really avoid that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's when you develop such a love for bodybuilding and like your process, and you don't, it unlocks like a skill in your brain that you're not like moved by the judgment of like people outside of you or whatever. And that's kind of something that I've gained from like doing like YouTube videos in public in like Mena, Arkansas, is you develop a callus to like the judgment of other people and stuff like that. And that's huge. And like when you're so committed to like whatever your goal is or whatever in bodybuilding, you also get like a sense of respect from the people around you. I feel like they can sense that. They see like you like they see you eating the same meal at the same little desk at the same time every day. After a while, people are going to see that and be like, that's pretty crazy. I couldn't do that. And I think you have to go through like a period when you're younger of like people not understanding that. And then that's where it's kind of like the breaking point for some people. It's like whoever is able to like sustain that and be okay being like different or whatever, that's who like will stay in it for the longest. And like with anything in bodybuilding, like from the people I've talked to and what this makes logical sense is like the people who can stay in this the longest are probably the people who are going to do the best. If you get into this for any kind of like what I deem is like a materialistic purpose, be it likes, be it, you know, social acceptance, be it like just your physique in general, you're not going to last that long. But if you get into it for like strong morals, strong ethics, like something that like me and you've come from, or someone has like some sort of like deeper why for why they do this, and that's who's going to like stick in it for the longest. But get into a little bit of your personal bodybuilding right now. What is your current, like, what would you deem as your current phase, and what are some of your current, like, what are your plans going forward? You can go into like your cycle, go into your training split, your diet, like all that.
Dude, I'm an open book when it comes to stuff, and I love talking about like what I'm doing and why. That too is like a huge attraction to bodybuilding for me. Also, just any sort of athletic endeavor in general, anything that requires some sort of progression, adaptation. It tickles my it tickles my autism a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I love how things work and the whys, but for me at the moment, I'm currently in the final 4 to 6 weeks, depending, you know, on how things move, of an aggressive cut. I had competed last year in June, late June, and that was my first bodybuilding show. Prior to that, I was mostly fixated on powerlifting, and just due to my like how I viewed myself, I always kind of considered myself as like, I'm not able to be a bodybuilder. I don't have the structure for it. I don't have the discipline around food. Powerlifting, you can get away with a little bit more in terms of like, you know, eating whatever.
Mhm.
But I figured I should do a bodybuilding show for one, for the experience of it, because it seemed appealing. I could be known as someone who like has actually done the thing.
Mhm.
And like, I'm not gonna go out of my way to try and be a coach for bodybuilding if I myself have never competed. I feel like it would look a little ridiculous. So I went on to do a show. The first half of that prep, I had help from my coach, who was originally my coach for powerlifting. And I'm very close to the guy to this day. He's like an older brother, but
Mhm.
it definitely was not his field of work. It wasn't his specialization. So the second half of that prep, I tried to coach myself through it, and I made so many mistakes. I put myself through the ringer, and looking back, like seeing just how bad it was, also my mental state at the time with the combination of things I was trying to do, being desperate with drugs, not in terms of like pushing androgen super high, but like every other thing, because I'm a nerd for the peptide stuff, all the ancillary stuff, things like that.
Mhm.
I came into that show very flat and also soft. I did not give myself a single refeed during that prep. It was 20 weeks in total. And I just felt like shit. I did decent for open class, but it was a local show. So in my head too, I was kind of like downplaying it. I'm like, it's whatever.
Mhm.
And coming out of that, I had experienced some really concerning issues with the rebound in terms of water retention and everything. And that's typical, right? Like coming out of a bodybuilding show, especially someone's first show, like it's almost like a guarantee. Your first or second show, you're going to go a little too crazy with the food right after. And you're
Mhm.
going to have like the edema, the fucking ankle lines and stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, there was a bit of things that were kind of deeper under the hood. So I gained about 25, maybe 30 pounds of water weight within just a few weeks. I'd gone back to dieting very hard, like doing everything I could, but it had gotten so bad and it wasn't going away, to the point where like I was worried that I was having like some sort of congestive heart failure, something was wrong with my kidneys. I went and basically blew all my money on scans and tests and lab work to see what was going on. And nothing was really out of the ordinary. I had surprisingly very good lab work. My heart looked like any young athlete's. So after that, I kind of felt like, well, to see how poorly I responded coming out of the show, also how bad I felt about my discipline during that prep, my performance, just everything leading up to the show, I told myself, like, I'm not cut out for bodybuilding. Like, I did the thing, I gave it a try, but it's just not for me. And that was bullshit. That was very much bullshit. It was a self-limiting belief. So from summer of 25, following that show up until just about 2 months ago, I had my little hybrid athlete arc. I got into sprinting, maybe a little bit of dabbling in powerlifting again, trying out different things. And it was fun. And it was also probably good to give my body a break away from bodybuilding specific training, drugs and everything. But I realized with that time away, like there was an itch that just had not been scratched. And there was also a sense of like unfinished business. So around May this year, I had flown out to Wisconsin to visit my girlfriend. She was in Wisconsin at the moment. We're currently long distance, but so that's another topic.
Mhm.
And out there, you got Culver's, you got a lot of frozen custard, you got good food. And she is also a former fat kid, so we know how to eat. I'll just say we went pretty crazy together. And about halfway through that trip, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to lean into this and I'm going to let myself kind of get fucking fat. I'm going to let myself go. And then from there, I had the intention of like, I'm going to hire a coach who I feel I can put a lot of trust in and do another little transformation, like I have my OG weight loss transformation, which people know me for on social media. But like after a certain point, I kind of feel silly, like posting pictures of me back when I was 13 because it was so long ago. So I'm going to get fat again and then lock the fuck in and go back for it and, be back for blood. So I began working with a coach at the start of June. I had SIBO. I had given myself SIBO through a few different things, but mostly just eating like an asshole
Yeah.
in large quantities. And so the first month was kind of dedicated to resolving that. I did strict carnivore to kind of speed up the process of healing that as fast as possible.
Mhm.
It was a pain in the ass. Training on zero carbs for that long definitely sucks, but the cognition is great. I did enjoy that about being in ketosis, but it worked really well. We pulled off a lot of fat, a lot of inflammation. And then from July to now, we have reintroduced a really moderate amount of androgens and, bodybuilding drug stuff.
Mhm.
And getting back to the training, having a little bit of carbs. I've been going really hard with cardio, really hard with diet. This is definitely, I would say, second to that prep, probably the hardest I've pushed. But because I've done it in such a short time frame, like I've given myself like kind of like a head start. And now I'm in the final 6 weeks of this cut, essentially like a mock prep, trying to get myself to like at least photo shoot ready, you know, not stage lean, but close to. And then from there, dude, like I can now allow myself like a proper reverse, a proper off season where I can put on a good amount of size, because previous to this, I mean, every time I've gotten lean in the past, like I've kind of rebounded a little too quickly. And coming from like the former fat kid background, I've always been afraid to actually eat in the surplus and like treat it like a diet, you know? So it's always been like a perma cutting kind of thing, and then get really fat really fast and then back to perma cutting.
Dude, yeah.
So
that's so real.
So sorry for like dragging that on super fucking long, but
No.
the plan now essentially is, depending on how I'm looking by the end of this phase here, I might honestly look to maintain that condition and then go into a winter show, depending, because as we know, there's plans to make some moves, and depending on where I'm at, and also budget, because bodybuilding is so fucking expensive. Like just the actual competition is so expensive.
Yeah.
I might do a winter show, but also I think it would be a pretty good idea to use this as my first time getting truly peeled, reversing, and then going to a proper off season. Bodybuilding is now 100%. Like I've just like locked onto it, and I'm not letting go.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think there's so many good like podcasts out there right now that are pushing that message of like being all in on like your goal with bodybuilding. Like I know you listen to like Joseph Percher and just the guys within that space leaning into more of like, there was Austin Brown's also in like that realm of people. And there was one podcast he was on where he was like, you know, man, if I had to give my younger self one piece of advice, like, dude, just go all in. Like, dude, like stop caring about like, oh, what if I waste my time? What if people care? He's like, bro, just go all in on it. And I think that's such a good lesson for guys to learn. And like Ron Partlow like shot me that message that I shared with you, where he was like, I don't know, man, I just did what I wanted to do and I figured it out. And I think that that's such a good message as well. And just going all in on you, like whatever your goal is. And like I seeing that fire like reignited in you is so cool. Like that just lights a fire in me as well. It's just seeing, I think we both went through like the same exact downfall with our like process in like almost the same similar time. And then it's like I almost did the exact same thing you did. I didn't like justify my actions, but I was like, you know what, I can just like lock back in, and this could be like a second transformation, and all is well. And so we kind of have like a very similar like phase we're in, to where like I already ended like my cut phase or whatever a few weeks back, but you're kind of in that same phase of like getting into a good lean spot and then rebounding out of that. And we're both also from the same background, as like we've always been, it's never been a gaining weight thing for us. It's always been a losing weight, and then like trying to actually gain size has always been kind of like foreign to us. And that's a point that my coach made to me, was like, I asked him before we started this rebound phase, I was like, what could I do to be a better athlete? I was just like being honest. And he was like, we went over like the X's and O's and we talked about some other things, but he's like, you're also gonna have to get comfortable and find meaning within other things that are outside your physical appearance, because like you're gonna be in a growth phase for more than you are peeled, because, you know, for me, I'm 6 foot tall. So it's like, you're going to be trying to grow for like a while. And that's for all of bodybuilding, all your bodybuilding career, you're going to be trying to grow, whatever. But even more so for me, because like for my last show, I got down to 144 pounds at 6 foot tall. So it's like, you know, I'm gonna need to spend a lot more time growing. And he made the point of like, you're gonna have to find things within your bodybuilding process that can bring you joy, that's not like your physical appearance. Because like he was like, the lines are going to disappear, and obviously I'm not going to like get super fat anymore, but like he's like, the lines aren't going to be as pretty as they are at the end of your cuts or at the end of your preps or whatever, as you push weight back up. But you have to find like meaning within your training, within your process. And I think when you're able to adopt the mindset that a lot of the good coaches are pushing now, of like just loving the process, you don't really have to 24/7 call upon like your physical appearance to bring you happiness within bodybuilding. You can call upon like, did you check all the boxes of like taking all your subs for the day? Did you remember to take your shots for the day? Did you get your water in? Did you get your cardio in? Did you progress in the gym today? Like you can call upon all of those wins within your bodybuilding process, to where you're not having to come from the mindset that like former fat kids come from, of like looking at yourself and pulling joy from that. Because like once you start pushing way back up, you're not gonna like how you look. You know, a lot of bodybuilders say like, you know, Luke Pritchard like always says, and he was on my podcast a few weeks ago. He's like, bro, I don't like how I look like 95% of the year. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of have to get like comfortable with that. And but yeah, man, that sounds really exciting listening to your current phase and like you locking back in everything and just seeing someone of like the same age like having that fire lit within them. It's really cool to hear, and that's really cool to see or hear like your winter show thing as well. I had no idea you were thinking of doing a winter show. So that's fucking sick.
It's really just depending on how finances are looking, man. Because it's planning a move and then also trying to do a show on top of that. It would be hefty. But
yeah, for sure.
Riding off of what you said, I kind of did myself a favor there with letting myself go and fucking off, because in that time, I was probably looking my worst I have in many years. But in doing so, like I kind of felt like it built a little bit of comfortability in being a little bit detached from my appearance. So now it's like going forward, I mean, I honestly don't care as much because like I found that passion again for the actual process of it. You know, I may not look my best, 365 days out of the year, but that doesn't really matter when it's like, that's not even really the point anymore.
Yeah, that's a really good point, is you let yourself go to where you just don't care about how you look, and that kind of like rewired how we think about ourselves. And it's like you would think, kind of like I say, God makes everything happen for like some sort of reason. And I don't know why I had to go like through that phase like the way I did a few months back, but it's like looking back on it now, it's like it's kind of helped me get to where I'm at now. You know what I mean? So it's just like everything happens for a reason. Like people have to go through like that hard random thing sometimes just to get on the other side and see the benefit from it. But as far as I kind of went over my current approach to everything. In my new YouTube video, I did like a Loom video for like 15 minutes at the end. I literally just went into my spreadsheet and just went over everything. And so the people on here already kind of know about my current phase, but like my current outlook as far as like competitions go, I have an idea that I think it's smart for people or younger guys to compete, not for the sake of getting, not outside of anything physical, just learning the ins and outs of like peak week and how to handle yourself, and like being backstage, not caring about what the other people are doing, knowing like how to carry yourself at the hotel, putting your feet up and just relaxing, all of those things, and actually being on stage. Because like it's one thing to pose in your check-ins or pose when it's like damn near impossible to pose when you're like depleted and you're like half dead in prep. Because I've made the mistake in the past of putting off like a lot of posing practice until like my last 2 weeks, and my first 2 preps have included, like my first one, I got down to 950 calories and 2 hours of cardio. No one is going to pose rounds after that. I literally I couldn't. So it's like just learning those things and doing those things is why I want to at least compete once a year for the next couple of years. So if I do compete, I'm never going to compete around the holidays again, so where my rebound phase is within the holidays. Because I think I've gotten to a point maturity wise now that I could just like take one meal and eat with the family and move the fuck on. I think I've matured to that finally. But like this year, that was not the case, and that's where I cooked everything, because I had such a hard prep. Not nothing against my old coach, but like I think, and I don't have a lot of muscle. So like whenever you're just young and developing, really the only calling card that you have at a bodybuilding show is condition. So it's like just get them in shape. But I do think that my past 2 preps, I've been kind of pushed to the point where my body is just screwed. So where like I've lost like every single bit of strength I have in both of my preps. And like I'm not saying like nothing against my old coach or nothing, but I think he was just like not using me as like a marketing thing to be like, look how peeled I can get my client, but it almost kind of felt like that. And then so that just led to my show being, it was October 25th of last year. So Thanksgiving and Christmas are right there. It's like, if my mental and my hormones are still screwed for good, it's like good luck trying to like actually have a productive rebound. And so now I think looking forward for competitions, I would want to compete more of what like the typical bodybuilding season is in like the spring, summer era. Plus my birthday's in that time. So it'd be kind of fun to compete around my birthday. And then, but I think if I'm going to compete anytime within the next year or 2, it's going to be like summer or late summer or early fall of the next year. Or if I don't compete, there's 2 ways of looking about it. I'm not really even talked to Tom about this, but we could even do like what a guy I listened to on Instagram and on a few podcasts. His name's Ty Bender. Just get really peeled here in the next year after our growth phase, like to get dick skin peeled and then have that like rebound effect out of that. Cause I think that's possibly even a better approach because you could like push yourself to such a depleted state and not care because you're not getting on stage. And then that rebound effect on the other side of that be even better than if you're trying to maintain a little bit of fullness and a little bit of life to your physique to actually get on stage. If you don't get on stage, you can just be, I'm just going to get as peeled as I can, let the training slip just a little bit, let go as flat as I can, and then that rebound afterwards, do that. So that's kind of the two options I have. I do think from like a business perspective and just a being on stage perspective, getting on stage would be smart. But at the end of the day, if like the big overarching goal is like progression within bodybuilding, I do think that just focusing on growth, especially at 21 years old, is really all you need to think about, in my opinion. But
yeah, man, going forward, I know for myself, pacing is everything. Patience and pacing.
Yeah.
So like you said, at this age, or even just, at any age, but being early in your career as a bodybuilder, you have to be okay with the fact that it's going to be a long time before you even probably look like a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And the best thing you can bring is conditioning. And if you can do that, that sets you up for like a good opportunity to grow following that. But it's very tough without the proper guidance. And either way, just without the proper timeline in mind,
Yeah, I think having a coach to like give you that perspective is so important too, because like especially when you're like just getting into bodybuilding, you don't know like rates of progress you need to, or like rates of gain or rates of loss you need to be like following or whatever. And if you try and that's why it's so good to have, it's like it's a double-edged sword and the grand aspect of it. Like that's why it's such a good thing for us that we have like so many options to like knowledge and value and coaches in 2026, to where like if you just do your due diligence, you could probably figure it out on your own a little bit better than guys in the 90s or like even us when we started out. There's so much information out there now, but that's also, like I said, a double-edged sword, to where it's like if you try and apply the information that you see off of your random TikTok gearhead that's 18 years old, it's like you could just screw yourself forever. But if you find yourself in like the correct circles that I think we've like found ourselves in, you could just take information, a little bit of information from here, a little input from there, or you could just make it a lot easier for yourself and get a coach. Like I think that, a lot of people say like, well, maybe you should just take some time to learn on your own. But it's like, well, these guys have already made all the fuck ups that I'm going to make. So like, why not just hire them and do it like that? I think that's why you hire a coach, is they're taking away all the mishaps that they made and then applying it with you. So it's just, I think that's a really good point you make, is hiring a coach. And it's easier now than ever to like learn who your coach is too, because like every good coach is gonna have appeared on a podcast or have one themselves at some point. If you want to get to know them, not only can you do that, just reach out to their clients or reach out to them and be like, yo, like how do you do training? What's your thoughts on like diets? What are your thoughts on like cycle designs? Maybe they're not going to disclose all that to you, but you could just also ask their clients, like how does Seth carry himself with his clients, or like how does Tom carry himself with his clients? And then you get to know them like that. It's really easy to figure out your kind of coach and who you need to hire, especially with social media in 2026.
I, by the way, had to go sit down. I can feel my blood sugar dropping a little bit, but I actually agree with that. But at the same time, I do feel like with the abundance of coaches now, I mean, just about everybody and their grandma is a coach, at least on Instagram and TikTok. With things like the podcast, longer form content, and then also there's definitely different niches when it comes to bodybuilding and coaches. There's more of a, like I lump Joe, like Joseph Percher, Anson Robbins, you, and a few others into like this specific camp. And then there's other guys who are more so, they talk a lot about the pharmacology side of things, peptides, more of the, I guess, exciting stuff. To most people, especially the newcomer, that stuff is very exciting.
It's easily marketed too.
Yeah. Dude, it's tough because, I mean, there's so much info out there and there's so many people putting out information, but a lot of it is just regurgitated. A lot of it is coming from someone else or coming from ChatGPT or whatever the fuck they learned from like watching a few Vigorous Steve videos. I really worry mostly about what I'm seeing on TikTok. Like I mostly stick to Instagram for just social media, my own content, and then also like whatever I'm engaging with. But recently I've tried to pick back up TikTok just because it is like it's easy to just like post whatever. You can just post whatever the fuck you want every day. It doesn't punish you for that. But the stuff that I'm seeing, dude, especially with my algorithm, it's a lot of younger dudes and they are obsessed with the pharma side of stuff, peptides, PEDs.
I haven't seen that. Wow,
And
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that side of social media.
I'll have to send you some stuff because I'm telling you, dude, it's kind of it's really weird because like I know when I first got into all that, like my obsession with that stuff started when I was 15 because it's really fucking cool. It's cool to think about. It's cool, right? But I feel like most people go through a phase where like that's kind of the main priority, the main obsession, but it kind of circles back to, okay, well, none of that stuff really even matters if you're not dialed everywhere else.
Exactly.
Like I know a few people say you're only as big as your dose if you are doing everything else right.
Yeah,
but
that's
I
what
mean,
like
dude,
the
there's so
Hilly
many
out of the
people
UK
now
says.
who,
Yeah.
there's so many people now who like the dose is everything to them, and they may think that they are mature enough to be, you know, venturing into that territory, but just relatively with the amount of experience in terms of time, like you're playing a risky game. And I mean, I've gotten a few people under my own wing with my coaching because I had a younger demographic where they've come to me and they're kind of doing insane shit from the start, and I have to be like, okay, dude, like I get it, and I know you're excited about this stuff, but I have to like rein them in and pull down everything, get them healthy again, and you know, like if they're not even training well in the first place, I mean, all that stuff is really not going to anywhere good. But
Yeah, I haven't
the
seen
big
that
thing
side of
that
social media. Sorry to interrupt, but like I haven't. I guess because I don't have TikTok anymore. Because I feel like the demographic I try to go for isn't. I try and aim for like an older demographic, which is kind of difficult when you're younger. When like trying to speak to older people, but like most of my clients are like older than me anyway, so it's just kind of whatever. But I haven't even seen like I think maybe you reposted or someone reposted like some kid talking about like his cycle. I'm sure it was just like a random video, and I haven't seen that like side of like I guess that's not like a popular thing or on Instagram for younger guys to be posting that kind of stuff, but that's crazy. Just thinking, I think like the access of that kind of stuff and how easy it is to get like to get gear, and realizing that like to me, even up to like my like show last year, I thought that was like impossible to get PEDs. I thought it was so expensive and so hard, but then like you get into it, it's like you could probably have it, you know, in a couple of days if you know how to buy Bitcoin and transfer it to a wallet, you're probably good. And it's like I think when people have like realize that, they're like, oh, this is easy to me. And like that's what so many people try and like market their content around, is like that, because that is what people find like sexy and whatever. And if you're trying to make content and you only say like training's the most important, that's just not going to gain the views. That's not going to get the clicks. That's not going to get the likes of the guys that are younger like us that kind of have like goldfish brain and can't constructively think about anything. But like, yep, I'm just going to take all these drugs. And I even run into that with some guy, like, hopefully I don't think he'll listen to this, but there's like a guy I work with at work at Walmart that has like bought all of these peptides and talks all about them all the time. And that's all he talks to me about. And I'm like, you don't work out. You eat once a day, but you're talking to me about, you sent me a list of all these peptides that you talked about with your friend on Reddit, but you have never been to the gym. And I've told him this time and time again, and I've like been really nice about it. I'm like, dude, I love that you're interested in the peptide and the biohacking and the yip and the yap, but like, I really think you need to just eat better and not play video games when you get out of your brain rotting job at Walmart. And then he'll just leave me on red. And then he'll come up to me the next day and be like, so I started a Reddit and trizepatide. I'm doing like a double dose of both. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. You're going to rebound all that weight. And it's sad to see that, but it's just people, I don't know. I haven't seen that side of social media. So maybe I'll download TikTok after this and go like look up a keyword.
I could probably,
yeah.
We could probably do a whole podcast just on this topic. Well, the thing is with social media, and also the danger of it is it is an echo chamber. Like whatever your algorithm is, whatever you engage with the most, even if it's just looking at a post for a certain amount of time, you're going to get fed more of that. So for me, I do take into consideration that I'm probably seeing a lot more of this stuff because I look at it for longer and I'm thinking to myself like, oh fuck, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, to what you're saying, I mean, even with older people as well, I mean, go on r/Reddit you chat on Reddit or any of like the peptide subreddits. We have like 40-year-olds with kids who are overweight taking like, you know, the upper end doses of GLPs and testosterone and all these peptides just to see their abs for the first time, just to get down to 15% body fat, you know? It's the accessibility to PEDs and also information on PEDs. It is a double-edged sword. There's been a lot of good to come from it in terms of like harm reduction and people knowing to take care of their health markers, things like that. But just, I mean, bro, it's kind of human nature to have shiny object syndrome and kind of go for the shiny object a little quicker than you should.
It's kind of like the guys it's like the guys in the 90s had their downside was like health was not like a consideration and like a pillar for their bodybuilding or whatever, but they didn't have access like all of the crazy information on cycles. So they didn't really look into doing that kind of stuff. They kind of like found what worked for them and then left it at that. Now we have access to good information on like ancillaries for health, getting blood work, you know, tracking your blood pressure, doing cardio and all that kind of stuff. But then we also have access to what every drug does, all these crazy doses, all of these crazy protocols that people have put together. And then it's like we get away from like the simplicity of how easy like cycle designs could be. Cause like every good bodybuilder every person that I've talked to, that the people that are doing these crazy cycles and look like ass want to look like, those people that I've talked to do like this handful of a cocktail of 5 or 6 different compounds that they agree with, and that is it. Like it's nothing crazy. Like I did like, not that any of my thinking behind PEDs or bodybuilding is really centered in this anymore, just due to like what I've heard and what I listen to now. But I did J3U. I've gone through it twice now. And like I see John Jewett's cycle. You know, I look at his log every once in a while. He's not doing what like I go through the professional muscle forum quite a bit. Like that's where I consume quite a bit of info from that forum. And I went into one of the logs on there, and this guy is like road to my second NPC show, and he's like, you know, 35. It's always like the older guy archetype that thinks he's like hot shit that's doing like crazy cycles, or it's like the 18-year-old kid who's retarded. But anyways, I looked at the cycle and I was like adding it up, and I was like, am I getting to 4 grams already? And this guy looks like ass. And then like I'll go like Beef Stewart Sutherland also posting professional muscle, and he posted update today. Like I went and clicked on his log and it was so weird. I refreshed it and he like posted a new update. He's like 5 weeks out from, I think, the Europa Pro or whatever. And then he'll post his cycle and it's like, it's pretty moderate. It's moderate or not moderate, but it's appropriate for his size. It makes sense for his size. And like, I just think that seeing and talking to the people who are doing and look the way that these like random people on TikTok and Reddit want to look like, they're doing 5 or 6 of the same compounds. It's tests. It's something that it's a second compound that like control their estrogen. It's growth hormone and it's insulin. It's like very simple. And it's like 4 or 5, 6 different things. And then I think when people really get a grasp of like the simplicity of it, then they can put more of their thoughts into like the training and the diet that you actually have control over. Because like you think about like how different compounds have like different esters, and they have different whatevers, and like this takes weeks for you to see whatever. The training and the diet, you can make a change now and see like a change very quickly. So it's like, why not focus on that first instead of this random variable that you may not even know how your body's going to respond to? Because everybody also has like a different genetic makeup of how they're going to respond to all of these compounds. You know, people that can take 2 grams of gear and have very little aromatization. You know, some people that can, like Blue Taylor, for an example, I remember listening to him, he can only take like 175 per week, and then he would have horrible side effects. So it's like all this stuff is so variable, but like the training and the diet is a lot more like direct, and you can make changes to that and see a benefit a lot more quicker, and you have more control over it, you know?
I think people really like to overestimate what the drug stuff does. And it works. Like, of course,
Yeah.
it works. Drugs work. They do things, but they only do as much as what you are doing elsewhere.
Yeah, that is true. I think that that's also like what you have, like I kind of already alluded to, but it's what you really have control over. You can't really control the enzyme in your body that's gonna clear clear whatever XYZ compound you take. You don't have control over how much I mean, to a degree you do, like just don't be a fatty, but you don't have much control over how much your body's going to naturally aromatize. You literally can't do nothing about that really. But like the training and the diet, you can control that. You can tailor your split correctly. You can learn how to not train like a pussy. You can do this, you can do that. And that is what you need to hone in on. And that's where like the real fun in bodybuilding is too. It's like, there's not really too much that's like fun about like pinning gear every day and like freaking out and like going into the super nuanced things about your cycle. It's like, what's really fun is like finding the split that finally has worked for you and like learning new execution cues or execution whatever or exercise cues or whatever that can help you finally grow your legs or just learn how to train harder. That's the fun shit. I don't think there's really anything that you could get like mentally stimulating from like sitting here and like formulating this perfect cycle and I'm going to do this drug for this many weeks and I'm going to do this many milligrams for this. It's like that. No one really does that. That's like successful at this, at least.
If we could do a podcast sometime specifically on the gear side of things, I think I'd enjoy that quite a bit because I'm trying to make I'm trying to segue back into talking more about that stuff online. Because I used to be affiliated with a few different peptide companies. I would post a lot of like deep dive videos on different compounds, stuff like this, because it always has been a passion of mine. Like I just find it very interesting. But I took a step away from that stuff simply because like the amount of concerning DMs I'd get from people asking questions about what they're taking and if they should take this or that. And also just knowing like the influence it can have on people, because even if you say, don't do this at home, don't take what I'm taking or, do your own research, people will still copy bar for bar, whatever it is that they see the person who looks like how they want to look is doing. You can't really trust people to have good judgment and discernment, which sucks. But nonetheless, I really love talking about this shit, and I would love to make my way back to it, especially being in a more mature state of mind, compared to before when it was a lot more exciting.
Yeah, I think that, being able to have the knowledge you do at your age is quite crazy in my opinion, and your ability to format your message in a way that's like consumable and you're not trying to like you don't try and come off as like a dickhead teacher, if that makes sense. You come off as like, hey, this is like this drug. It does this, and maybe you should design it like this and do like this. You do it in a very like consumer friendly way that like makes sense. And like, like every, business mentor, like person that teaches like how to position yourself for your content or business is always like, you need to be so like well versed in your niche or whatever that you're able to like say it back to someone in like a fifth grade terminology and manner. And not saying that your content is like fucking fifth grade terminology or whatever, but like you're able to relay it to someone and then like be like, that actually does make sense. You don't try and like speak. That's like the number one sign of someone that is not well versed in what they're talking on, is they start trying to speak with like big ass words and like all these crazy terminology when it's like, this drug does this for this, use it like this, have a good day. I think that getting yourself back in that position, and like this is where it's kind of gay, but like having some kind of authority within that space, especially being a younger guy, I think that that's kind of the position I'm trying to take with this podcast, actually, is being someone that is younger doing this, that isn't retarded, basically. Because like the majority of people on social media that are young that post this kind of stuff aren't the smartest, and they don't have like a good head on their shoulders, and not trying to blow smoke up our asses or whatever. But I think
it's often just an experience thing, like it's not even in a negative way, like shooting anyone down. It's just an experience thing. People are relatively inexperienced, whether it's just through the amount of time they've been doing this stuff or learning about this stuff, but it's also an exposure thing. That's very that's one of the things I try to drive home to people, is like, you need to have like exposure to all sorts of different things and all of the different camps, whether it's, different camps in nutrition, PEDs, training, because you don't have that exposure, that is how you become kind of like tunnel vision and biased into it. Yeah, exactly. And when you have the exposure and you're able to like observe the differences, having that like zoomed out perspective, you're able to kind of pick apart, okay, logically, like this makes sense. This, not so much. I get what they're going for there, but in reality, like how important is it really? Like it's so easy to get caught in your own echo chamber. And I mean,
that's a skill and sorry to interrupt, but that's a skill that I think is very underrated, that I think both me and you have, is being able to like not get into a dogmatic approach and not try and that's such a stupid perspective to have, to like lock yourself into one way, when it's like zoom out and just imagine like a bird's eye view of looking at all of the different camps of just like bodybuilding circles. Okay. You've got like safer use. You've got like push grams of gear. You've got like moderate people. You've got then training. You've got like high volume. You've got like low volume. You've got whatever. You've got the science-based lifters. But like there is probably some sort of value to gain from all of that. And that doesn't mean you have to apply it to your process and to your client's process and to what you do. But it's like being able to see the framework of what they're saying, like, okay, that makes sense, but I don't agree with that. You can, and I can't remember who said this, but it's like, we could be having a conversation about a cycle design or a training split or a diet, and we could both be right for our given scenario. And it's like, it all comes back to anything in bodybuilding comes back to this one quote. It depends. And when you're able to, it depends. And when you're able to, when you're the kind of person that can look from all these different perspectives, that's when you gain that it depends mindset. Because like you're like, well, if I don't really know like what's a example I could use. Like if someone is like, I'm not as well versed in like the cycle thing and PED thing as you're, like training, for example. Let's say someone has like really, bad joints. I'm not going to give them a top set, back off set type of progressive overload split, because their joints are just not going to be able to maintain that. I'm going to give them more volume, higher rep sets, but more higher reps, but more sets. Their joints are going to be able to sustain that longer, whatever. Let's say that you look at a diet, someone, they fucking had their gallbladder removed and they just can't do fats. I'm not going to give them a high fat diet. You know what I mean? So it's like, you have to have that perspective and be able to look at every camp that talks about everything and be like, okay, that makes sense. But just for my given scenario, I'm not going to apply that. It's not that I don't like you. It's not that you're wrong. No, there are some people that within the space that do try and push their message a little too much, and that it's like, okay, maybe I don't like you, because there are those people that are like, if you don't do this, you are wrong. When it's like, there is never any right or wrong in bodybuilding, in my opinion. It's like, it always, it depends to the situation. Everything works at the end of the day. Literally everything works at the end of this, for this, the right situation, at least.
I know when you get people on, especially people who are like pretty well known within the space, like you kind of ask them like, how do you set up this thing? Like what's your process?
I could do that for you. There's a guy, do you know that guy I had on, David or whatever?
Yeah. I fucking love that
the
guy.
The English one. Yeah. I could do that with you. I could be like, here is XYZ client, build me out his cycle, build me out his split.
I was going to say that like case studies are probably the most fun and like actually,
valuable
way to approach like the it depends sort of situations, you know?
I love how he does that. He's like, okay, I'm coming out of the show, I am perfectly healthy, I am the perfect athlete. Do it. Like he was so fun to have on. He's cool. Yeah, Seth, man, I'm really glad that we're getting to do this podcast now. I think that going forward, we kind of touched on this off air, but we're gonna be bringing more like client case studies to you guys, and like I'll present like a case study to Seth. He'll give me like what he would do for that client. And maybe some of you guys watch the English One podcast, kind of how he'll be like, here's XYZ athlete, how would you build out his training split? How would you go about his diet? How would you go about his cycle design? And that's gonna be what structure I follow with this podcast with me and Seth going forward. It's gonna be kind of just like showing you guys our thinking process and what we do, how we believe, and kind of just pulling together all of our thinking philosophies, whatever, that we pulled from different camps. And there will be some like more just shooting the shit and y'all getting to know us as well. It's not going to be all just coaching and just strict like serious stuff. It's going to also be shooting the shit, because we're friends, and like there's going to be some like really cool shit coming up with us in the near future that you guys will see. But for now, man, this will be everything from me and Seth. Seth, where can people find you at? Even though they're going to be able to find you here, where can they find you at?
I mostly stick to Instagram at Majin Bra, like Majin, like Majin Buu, BRAH. Same handle on TikTok. I am trying to get back to long form content on YouTube. If you do check out my YouTube, same handle. You'll see a lot of older videos all the way back from 2023. I do recommend, if you want to get to know me, check those out. I would say they're still pretty unique compared to a lot of other videos within the fitness space. But aside from that, I'm mostly on Instagram. I try my best to hit people back and keep up to date with everyone. But for the most part, just kind of still figuring the shit out. Social media is a weird game.
Yeah, it is, bro. That's not to make this outro like long-winded or whatever, but that's been something I've been having to lean into recently. Is like I've devoted, and not that I'm going to quit studying like physiology and all the ins and outs of the body or whatever, but I've spent so much time the past few months just focusing on those things to where it's like I've let any kind of thought process behind the actual business and social media part of it just go to the wayside, because I kind of got burnt by a business mentor about this time last year, and it kind of drained my pockets for a long time. So I just like completely have neglected it. But it's like in 2026, as much as I think social media is gay, you've got to lean into it. And I think that this podcast,
it's part of the game.
I think that that's going to be something, this could be like your segue back into long form if you want to, because I can collab with you on YouTube. It'll pop up on both of our platform or both of our profiles, and that could be your segue back into it. I think that's how you really can gain a lot of trust in new prospective clients and just people in general, is if they sit down with you for an hour and like let's say we have a podcast next week, right? And you build out a full cycle design, split, training, diet, sleep, supplements, whatever, for a client that you have never even met, and it's an imaginary person that I make up. If someone sits through that for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and listens to you, you have gained so much like real estate in their brain that I think being able to segue back into some long form content, I think, not that I am a business mentor or by any means have any space in that recommending or any say in that, but I think that leaning back into that could be huge for you. And it's fun to do long form content. It's so much easier and flows better than trying to condense all your thoughts into like 30 seconds, because everybody watching social media nowadays has what I've coined, and what everyone's coined is like goldfish brain. So it's just goldfish brain. Yeah. So long form, in my opinion, is like the way to go. Even though it may not get the views, it may not be like the most business friendly or savvy, it's the method, you could say, I guess. Yeah, for sure, man.
I'm just hoping someone out there is eating their meal 3 watching this right now.
Dude, yeah, that's so cool of thinking that, like, people like watching the video, like people always like fasted cardio crew. I'm like, that's so cool, like becoming part of someone's routine. And I think that, starting this up the way we are, I think we're on the right path to become part of hopefully some kid watching, some kid or some guy watching this is like, daily routine. But this was kind of just like I said in the beginning, more of like an introductory episode is who we are, why we got into this, a little bit of our thinking behind some things, and then going forward it'll be more like deep dives into like nutrition. It's going to be like probably more like nuanced things within like the health space and the bodybuilding space, because that's kind of something that, like you said, it really like ticks our like autistic brain. So that'll be what more of the videos going forward will be about. But Seth, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to get on here, and then we'll be shooting another one here in the next week. And like I kind of alluded to you offline, and I'll tell the viewers now, is like my going forward, my podcast schedule will be like probably Monday be a guest episode, Wednesday will be a solo episode, and then I'll probably make like Friday be like our episode, and that's kind of like the rotation it'll be. So every Friday or every Monday, it just really depends on what I decide on, will be when we have this episode and this like segment of my podcast or whatever. And then Wednesday will be solo episode, and then Monday or Friday be guest, and that's kind of the schedule that'll be. But man, I'm gonna wrap things up there, brother, and until next time, we are out.
All right, appreciate you.